Hey everybody, it's now November. That means Schlocktober has ended and we're back to semi-normal programming. So if you watch the show a lot, I sometimes do these how I would fix or how Bob would fix episodes where, you know, I look at some property or movie franchise or multimedia intellectual property thing that has either, you know, been unsuccessfully made into movies or that they've been trying to make into movies, or, you know, just stuff that people either think should be movies or want to be movies but has some trouble getting made, and give kind of a ballpark movie version of fantasy booking kind of idea of what I might do or what I might come up with if someone from, you know, a movie studio sat down and said, hey, do you got any ideas or a pitch for how we would fix this, that, or the other thing, or how such and such movie should turn out? You know, in my know-it-all film geek YouTube series having guy kind of way. And usually I do one per episode. Sometimes, I think once before we did like 4. I kind of thought maybe I'll just jot down like, you know, 10 or 12 just random properties that, you know, have either stalled in production as movies or that people think should be movies or that we hear about. And just spitball some stuff without a written script and just see what happens. You know, just, you know, I'm gonna look down at my list right here and see, you know, what I can come up with. Obviously, since I've been sitting here thinking about it, I've already got some. It's not like 1,000% off the cuff. I don't have someone surprising me. But I'm not writing down a full script, so let's just see what we got. Make the alien the good guy. Seriously, that's it. That's the only thing left to do. Look, the xenomorph is not scary anymore. We've seen too much of it. We've seen it in too many different situations. This is a monster that was created to look scary in a fairly limited set of specific circumstances, which they already pretty much burned through in the first movie, and then they waited like a decade and did the only other thing you could do with it, which is say, okay, now what if there's a whole bunch of them and maybe one of them is really big? Like that's it. Part 3 didn't work. Resurrection didn't work, even though it's kind of fun that it's like the fanfic version of an Aliens movie. But yeah, the only thing left to do is follow the Godzilla track and make the alien the good guy. It's the only, like, different thing that you can now do with it. And, you know, like, the Alien series has, you know, kind of earned this reputation for always being kind of like subtly about, you know, women and motherhood and that sort of thing. So how about this? How about you make, like, the plan of the company in the Alien franchise is always that they want to, like, capture the alien so they can turn it into a weapon or make, like, alien soldiers or something. So what if maybe they've bred, like, a baby queen? Yeah, I know they did this same bullshit in Alien Resurrection, but hear me out. So they got a queen in captivity and they're trying to, like, force breed her. You know, because they do that to animals in captivity and it's all kinds of fucked up. And, like, she breaks out and, like, it's a young queen, so it's not, like, super big like it eventually gets, so it looks more like a conventional alien. And then you just flip the usual alien thing, so instead of, like, one bad alien hiding around the ship and picking people off and, you know, we're following the people hoping the alien doesn't jump out at them, now it's like a Die Hard kind of thing, and the alien is John McClane, where it's the one alien and she's good and we're on her side, and there's these asshole, like, scientists and guards and stuff, and, you know, we're rooting for her to scurry through the vents and pick them off and maybe, like, save the alien eggs and babies she's already had. You know, that can be pretty cool, right? And then if you want to get, like, really nuts with it, you know, when it's time to, like, figure out how you end this, you know, you can have the bad scientist guy go, oh, don't worry, we found someone who can handle this, and then, like, the door swings open and yeah, see, so maybe that, right? Don't do it. No more Jaws. No, just don't. All right, all the Jaws sequels suck. All right, Jaws is the only good Jaws movie, and it's good precisely because there's nowhere to go. It's perfect as it is. You know, none of the 3 hero guys are super special. It's just a regular fisherman. He was in the military at one point, but it's not a huge deal. You know, a regular sheriff, a regular scientist, and the shark is just a shark. There's nothing magical or supernatural or, you know, like, mythic about the shark. It's a fucking shark. So there's no reason to make another Jaws. Don't remake it. Don't do a sequel. Just don't do it. Stupid idea. But if you have to, I mean, okay, I guess I'd be kind of interested to see what the 2017 okay, like, if it was a sequel, I guess I would be kind of interested to see what the 2017 Amity looks like. Like, you know, maybe it's like a shark version of Salem, Massachusetts, you know, but instead of witches, it's sharks. Like, hey, a shark thing happened here once, and now that's our tourism. You know, instead of the nice beaches, people come to go on shark tours and, you know, see the skeleton of the shark, which is of course not the real shark, and hear people tell stupid stories about how they knew Sheriff Brody and Quint and Hooper, and it's this whole thing. But then you gotta figure out, like, how to get a shark in there, and, you know, like, does a shark just show up? You know what, maybe, like, you know, the first Jaws is all about how the mayor wants to make people think that there's not a shark. Maybe now, whoever the mayor is now, the corruption thing is like, hey, you know, more people will come if there was sharks again. So maybe they, like, put something in the water, like a sound machine or a vibration thing that's supposed to attract sharks, and it's specifically set for, oh no, we'll get like a couple like nurse sharks and, you know, little sharks, and it won't be a big thing, and then people will go on the shark tours and the tourism will come back up, but then like another monster shark shows up instead, like bigger than the last one, like something that shouldn't exist. And, you know, then they gotta do something about the shark again. Just whatever you do, don't, you know, try to find like new Hooper, new Quint, new Brody. Just, you know, think of new people, new reasons to go get the shark, and go from there. Like this would still probably be like a bad movie, but maybe a fun bad movie. Okay, so here's a thing that's always kind of like bugged me about Nightmare on Elm Street, even though, like, you know, 1, 3, and New Nightmare are great movies, but like they all kind of cop out on Freddy by having him go after the teenage versions of his original child victims in their dreams, because it's kind of like a way that the series can trade on the squickiness and the creepiness and the evil of Freddy being a child rapist. I mean, that's pretty much what he is, but without actually having to do kids in peril. So I think if you do another Nightmare on Elm Street, one, you gotta find a totally different angle than Robert Englund and Jackie Earle Haley. You gotta do something new with the personality. I don't know what that is, but think of something. But I think one way to up the ante, right, would be to make Freddy's victims, like the main characters that we're following around that are having the nightmares, make them kids. Make them the age of kids that Freddy Krueger would have been chasing after when he was alive, all right? So instead of the whole, I'm gonna go get the victims I originally got and they just forgot about it, make them the children of his original child victims who killed him because their parents didn't believe them and they had to take matters into their own hands, and that's what this is all about. Now, I know what you're thinking, you know, like Freddy as, you know, the trickster evil guy, and he's chasing after young kids. Isn't that just it, or a little too much like Pennywise? Yeah, kind of, but like, you know, the remake of It just became like the biggest horror movie ever, so like there's worse ideas. It's a game about a fighting contest. A bunch of colorful characters show up together in a place where they're gonna fight, because that's what they came to do. They fight each other, some win, some lose. Some of them have complicated reasons to be there. Others are just there to fight. You know, there's good ones, there's bad ones. Their agendas cross or they don't cross. Some of them know each other, some of them don't. Eventually it shakes out and, you know, the main good person that we like fights the main bad person that we like, or maybe there's some other thing going on and they all get wrapped up in that. It's, I mean, like, 2 out of every 3 kung fu movies ever made have used this plot. I don't know why it's so complicated. You just do that, but with Street Fighter. Yes, I know Street Fighter also has its own complicated bullshit anime mythology and nobody cares. Like, I know it and I don't care. It's stupid. Just make a fighting contest movie and put Street Fighter characters in it. Okay, this one is a little more complicated because yes, also a fighting contest thing, also with colorful characters, but people don't just care about the characters and the visuals and the world in Mortal Kombat, they also care about the level of violence and the fatalities. And the problem with that is that if you do the proper level of violence and the fatalities, you're gonna run out of characters really quick. Like, you have to decide, oh shit, it would be really awesome if Sub-Zero beheaded Johnny Cage here, but then Johnny Cage can't, like, punch somebody through the chest later on. So here's a thought. You do the plot of the first game where everybody goes to the Magic Island to compete in the Mortal Kombat tournament, fight Shang Tsung and eventually Goro. Just do that, that's all fine. Put in, you know, the original characters and whoever you think from 2 through whatever are also good. But you add one thing that's not in the games. The reason they're on the Magic Island is because on the Magic Island, everyone's got, like, crazy healing factor to even things out between the normal humans and the gods and the Outworld monsters. Like, you can still die, like if you get your head cut off or your brain destroyed or your heart pulled out or something, you're gonna die, but everything else, you'll heal up pretty good eventually. So you can do all of the crazy moves where people are getting their arms chopped off and their legs pulled apart and, you know, their guts ripped out and just throw the blood and guts everywhere. Fucking make the goriest Mortal Kombat movie you can make. And other than the fatalities, an hour later, people are basically okay. They're still hurt as fuck and banged up to hell, but you can still do multiple fight scenes for each character. And then do, like, the fatalities against the characters nobody likes. Like, nobody cares about Stryker. Kill him. So, yeah, so, like, as recording this, I haven't seen Justice League yet. No one seems to know what's going to happen with that, or even if they'll make another one, or if we're going to get, like, this Flashpoint reboot. But, you know, I guess if, like, I could go back in time and was in charge of Warner Brothers, I think they kind of had something in back when they were going to do the George Miller movie, where it was just going to be a Justice League movie and start off, and then see who deserved to get solo movies after that. Like, I think that might actually have been the best idea in retrospect. I know people were against it at the time because it would have meant that there was another guy playing Batman besides Christian Bale while that was still going on. But, you know, now maybe that would have been the way to go about it. You know, you can do a team movie starting off, like the X-Men movies did that. They started off and they said, hey, we're just gonna have the most popular member of the X-Men meet the other X-Men, and that's how we'll start this franchise off and introduce everyone. And, like, everyone on the Justice League is probably more well-known than the X-Men were to the general public at that time. And, you know, Warner Brothers is, like, in love with doing everything with Batman, so you could probably, like, knock off a really decent 90-minute perfectly good Justice League movie just having, hey, what if Batman tries to join the Justice League and there's, like, tension because he beats people up and he's not, like, super powered, but then they have to work together, and that's how we'll get introduced to Superman and Wonder Woman, Aquaman. I mean, you know, maybe it would have to be better than Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Suicide Squad. Anything would be. Transformers, how do you fix this? You know, I wish I had something really, like, dramatic for Transformers, but honestly, I think you just use something closer to functional versions of the G1 designs, and just pretty much, you could do the story from More Than Meets the Eye as a movie. I wish I had some, like, better twist to put on it, but I think Transformers is literally one of those things, they kind of got that right the first time on the animated one and in the comics, and everything since has just been either a good or bad progressive version of that. You know what might be funny? Have you ever seen, there's an old Canadian cartoon called, I think it's, like, What on Earth, and it's like supposed to be a documentary about Earth, but made by aliens who mistakenly assume that cars are the dominant life form on Earth because there's so many of them. Like, that kind of idea could be a fun new reason for why they decide to be cars when they wake up. Maybe you could still have Megatron be a gun, because, like, they look through all the different machines they can be, and he decides, oh, hey, they seem to really love this weapon. It's even in their constitution. This must be their god. So he decides to be a gun. You can have, like, some social commentary there, and do the Megatron turning into a gun thing, which we've never seen in any of the movies. But other than that, I mean, yeah, you know, you got Autobots and Decepticons. They fight each other. Sparkplug and Spike are the humans. Maybe don't have them spend most of the movie in the vehicle forms, so when they turn into the robots, it's like a surprise and it's special. Keep the robot cast kind of smaller and contained. You can always have more of them show up later. Hell, Devastator could be like the big last final cool thing in the movie, like, oh shit, there's a big one made out of like 6 of them, wow. So I actually do have a kind of detailed, sketched out idea for, you know, how you could make a good Ninja Turtles movie again, but we'll do that at another time because it's going to need its own whole thing. However, you know, I know we're all kind of sick of the cinematic universe thing by now, but whoever owns Ninja Turtles, I think it's like Nickelodeon and Paramount kind of have the movie rights on that still. Whoever has that, you could do, again, I know we're kind of sick of it and everyone but Marvel has kind of fucked it up, but you could do a Ninja Turtles cinematic universe. Like, there's enough other characters in there. You could do spin-offs. Like, Casey Jones could be a movie unto himself. You know, the Punisher, but he beats people up with sports equipment instead. That's funny. That's like a funny Wolverine or maybe a family-friendly Deadpool. That could work. You could have April O'Neil in there. Maybe the bad guy is like the Rat King. Maybe the Foot Clan, but not Shredder yet. Speaking of which, you know, a prequel would work really good. You could actually do a Splinter versus Shredder before there were Turtles prequel, and like I'd like to see that. That might be kind of kick-ass. And you could do it either way. Like, if you do the animated 80s series version where Splinter starts out as a guy, you know, you can just do a rival movie where, you know, how he and Shredder had like their falling out and Shredder taking over the Foot Clan, and eventually Yoshi winds up turning into the half-man, half-rat by the end for the first big, you know, Master Splinter scene, and then, you know, hey, he found some turtles and now we're gonna have a movie after this. Or if you do the one where he starts out as a rat, it's a different kind of movie, but, you know, hey, it's a different movie, but, you know, it's a rat who's in the sewers. He hates the Shredder and he wants to stop him. He eventually finds some turtles. At some point towards the end, he can turn into the mutant version of Splinter and have the big fight with Shredder. Like, that's a movie. I would watch either of those movies. Shredder on his own could be a movie. There's probably a story there. Okay, so I feel like people are always like tempted to overthink Legend of Zelda because it always is designed to feel like it has this bigger mythology, and people always say, oh, it has to be like Nintendo's Lord of the Rings. No, it doesn't. It's not an epic. It's long, but it's not really an epic. All right, it's one guy going on a fairly, you know, limited quest in a certain area to find some treasures to save one person from one villain. Like, that's your basic Zelda setup. Like, that's a 90-minute movie. No, I'm serious. Maybe like a sequel would be longer if it had to get more involved, but like a perfect Zelda movie, 90 minutes of, hey, there's Zelda, she's been kidnapped, there's Ganon, he did the kidnapping, you gotta go get some Triforce to get her back, let's go on the quest. 90 minutes of Link going through, you know, some overworld battles, some dungeon battles, maybe some kind of intrigue in villages, or with like other rival adventurers or some bullshit, but eventually, now I got the Triforce, let's go fight Ganon. Like, you know the Tom Cruise movie Legend? It was one of the Gems episodes. It's Tim Curry, he's red, he has the big horns, he's darkness, he's kind of awesome. The rest of the movie's kind of average, but that's cool. That movie, is like an urban legend. People think that inspired Zelda. I don't really think that's the case, but you never know. The outline of that, where it's just, hey, here's one guy, you gotta go get one thing, save one girl from one bad guy, that redressed with Zelda, the aesthetic and the music and the specific creatures that make Zelda Zelda, that would work. Like, a version of that would totally work. Just don't make it too long. That's a perfect 90-minute fantasy movie. That's all it needs to be. Speaking of video games, wow. Okay, so The Last Starfighter. It feels like there should have been a sequel to this right when it came out, and if you're gonna do one, like, don't remake it. Don't. See, the thing is, a sequel to The Last Starfighter sounds attractive because the whole idea of, hey, you're really good at this video game's actually a training simulator, so you can go up into space and do video game soldier stuff for real, is like a really cool idea, and it seems like something that would totally upgrade to a modern audience, but like, so much has happened culturally about video games and influence and gamer culture and all that stuff. I feel like you kind of have to address a little bit of that if you do the story now, and that would work better in a sequel, because the only real place to go, in my opinion, with a Last Starfighter sequel would be if Xur, since he got away at the end of the first one, the bad guy, like, made his own game stuff and sent it down to Earth so he could find his own starfighters. So, like, if he was gonna start doing that now, right, that would be interesting, because you've got Alex Rogan, versus whatever, like, you know, new gamer kid that Xur has found, who's, like, gonna be the bad guy. So it's, like, the old school gamer Starfighter who's good versus like the new school Starfighter who's been trained on like, instead of an arcade game, like some kind of Call of Duty Halo type thing that Xur created, and that's our villain. And maybe there's like a contrast between, you know, the old school and the new school, and, you know, the more innocent times and the more brutal, violent times of now. Like there's a premise there. I'm saying there's a premise there. You know, if you want to get like really specific, it can be like, you know, Alex is the more well-rounded arcade gamer guy, and then Xur's evil Starfighter is like, you know, like a Mountain Dewed up Reddit kid who's all, you know, red-pilled and all that bullshit. That would be fun. I would see that movie, but, you know, duh. Alright, so the problem with G.I. Joe turning into a movie, turning into anything really, is that the concept of what G.I. Joe actually is always kind of hard to define. Like, they're not just the army. In the cartoon, the original cartoon, they sort of feel like, it sort of feels like G.I. Joe is the entire U.S. Army because they just have so much stuff and so many guys, but, you know, they call them a special mission force, and in the comics, they're a little more of a contained thing, the original Larry Hama comics. You know, incidentally, for those of you who only know G.I. Joe from the cartoons, in the original version of this was a Marvel comic written by Larry Hama, who pretty much invented all the G.I. Joe stuff and the character names and, you know, all the really important foundational G.I. Joe mythology. In the comics, the origin of Cobra was that they were domestic terrorists. Did you know that? No, for real, like, this sounds like something you'd make up now, but, like, Cobra Commander was, like, a regular dude. I think he was a used car salesman who got, like, pissed off at the government and went all anarchist and got a bunch of other pissed off people together and formed, like, a militia, and that was Cobra, and they, like, were underground in a whole, they had, like, their own whole city out in the Midwest that seemed like a perfect little idyllic town, but it was actually Cobra. Like, that sounds like a perfect satirical thing that you'd do now as, like, a reinvention of G.I. Joe, but no, that was, like, Cobra was a domestic terrorist organization in the original version. That's pretty cool. Like, the movie is worth making just to do that, in my opinion. But as far as G.I. Joe itself, you need, like, this team of guys who are all super cool army guys with nicknames and, like, no sense of cohesive dress code and all their own special weapons and gimmicks, but they also need to have, like, a reason to exist because they're they're part of the army. They're not just, like, vigilantes or superheroes or something, so all right, maybe, how about this? Maybe instead of being this big, you know, sprawling army thing with like 100 guys, maybe there's like, you know, maybe 1,000 or so G.I. Joes, and they're a secret thing, and they're an army within the army. Like, everyone in G.I. Joe is also part of a different branch of the military. You know, they're soldiers, Navy, Army, Rangers, SEALs, Marines, all the different disciplines. You know, they're just spread out all throughout the Army and the intelligence services, and they're clandestine. You know, they answer to, like, CIA or President or somebody, but otherwise no one really knows or believes G.I. Joe exists. So, like, Duke, Snake Eye, Shipwreck, Lady J, Roadblock, all the G.I. Joes are just, people think they're, oh, it's just regular soldiers, you know, and they're not like the standout guys. They're like how every action movie that's a military action movie is usually about some guy or some girl who is the rogue, the renegade, who doesn't rise through the ranks because they got a problem with authority, and there's, you know, there's one in every unit, but like the secret is the one in every unit. Like, a bunch of those guys are secretly make up G.I. Joe, and they do covert stuff, or they stop bad stuff from happening within the army. They're like the last line of defense against when the last line of defense doesn't work or goes bad. So Cobra, secret underground organization, G.I. Joe, secret underground organization, and that way you get all of these different types of military guys. I mean, obviously you'd still have to come up with a story and a whole thing for them to go through of what are they going to fight Cobra over, who are the main characters, what's our arc going to be, how do you keep Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow from overshadowing the whole first movie because they always end up being more interesting than everyone else. Do you jump right into Serpentor and all that, or do you do that in the sequel? Obviously you do that in the sequel. But yeah, I think, like, core concept-wise, that version of G.I. Joe, a secret army inside the army, that could work. That could be a movie. Okay, so wow, working without a script is actually a much bigger pain in the ass, and I ramble a lot, and I'm gonna have to cut around a lot more stuttering than I usually do, so I hope this turns out looking like something. No idea how long it's gonna end up being, but hope you enjoyed the first How Would Bob Fix lightning round. Maybe we'll do this again sometime if this doesn't come out looking like total shit. Next week, probably a more conventional episode, I hope. See you then.
Hey gang, here's a question that keeps coming up. If your handle is MovieBob, where are your movie reviews? Well, my old reviews are in a lot of places. You'll find many of them on my YouTube channel, but you'll find the brand new ones on Geek.com, an awesome site that's also your one-stop news source for science, TV, gaming, technology, nerd culture, the works. You can find all my reviews directly by going to geek.com/author/bchipman, because that's my real name, and you can get regular updates on all my reviews and all of Geek.com's other great content by signing up for their kick-ass newsletter at subscribe.geek.com. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Geek.com YouTube channel, where you'll find the videos that accompany my reviews and tons of other great content too. Remember, that's Geek.com, the Geek.com newsletter, and Geek.com on YouTube. Make sure you don't miss out on all the latest MovieBob reviews. You can also check out my own new website, MovieBob Central, where you'll find my blog, links to all my work, and shop for my books, ebooks, and future MovieBob products. And please remember to like these videos, share them with all of your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching another MovieBob production.